I'm Emma Zoe from Zany Waves, and I'm here talking with Moy Cohen. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you for having me.
And if I'm not mistaken, you're joining all the way from Australia, right?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
What's
Uh,
it been like? You grew up in Mexico and the UK, right?
yeah. So I was born in Mexico, lived there till I was like seven-ish, moved to England with my mum, and then kind of would go visit my dad on holidays and stuff in Mexico because he still lives there. So yeah, I kind of grew up between the two. And then now I'm out in Australia, so in a completely different place.
I also want to talk about your debut EP, Overgrown, which came out earlier this month. That's a really big milestone on a musical level, but also on a personal level. So I wonder what have some of the feelings been surrounding that release?
Oh, it's a feeling of absolute relief and excitement at the same time. I really have been holding on to these songs for the longest time. It's been around 7 years since first entered the studio to record them. So now that they're out, um, it feels great, but it's also a huge weight off my chest, partly because the songs are about things which are really personal to me and I draw on a lot of personal experience. So just the act of releasing them into the world is also an act of letting go, and it's been really cathartic.
I can imagine. You mentioned they've been in the works for, you said 7 years. I wonder how much have they changed since their inception, if at all, or has it just kind of been adding more songs to the collection over time?
Well, really, they've been in the works recording wise for the last 7 years, but some of the songs much longer as to when I wrote them. And we tried when we were recording them to really keep them as close to that original feeling as possible. It's my introduction to the world as an artist, so we didn't want to overproduce anything. We wanted to keep it raw, and because, as I said, they talk about really raw emotions of an adolescent growing up and making sense of the world. It made sense to kind of keep the production down that same vein as well. So yeah, they've changed a bit as I've lived with them, and the reason why they took so long is because I was recording when I'd go on the summer or Christmas holidays to visit my dad in Mexico. So naturally, at that sort of age, I'd go back to England. I'd live with the songs for a bit. My voice would completely change, and I'd come back, and I wouldn't be able to sing in the key that we'd recorded before. So um, that's why it took so long. But yeah, we tried to keep them as close to the originals as possible when we were producing them.
Yeah, the raw and honesty really comes across in the songs. Were they all recorded in Mexico then?
Yeah, they all were. They were all recorded between Panorama Studios in Mexico, and then when I was finishing them during the pandemic, I bought a microphone and did some of the vocals, some of the final touches in my bedroom in Manchester in lockdown, in the freezing cold, which was interesting.
Kind of the exact opposite.
Of Mexico.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's spanned across many years and many locations, this project. So it's great that it's finally out there, and I have so much stuff that I'm excited to work on now as well. But I'm also just excited that these songs are out for everyone to listen to, because I've been telling people about them for ages, and now they can see that I wasn't just making it up. I do have these songs, and I mean, the close people to me have heard these songs a million times. So yeah.
I wonder what the writing process was. You, as you mentioned, it did span a while, but also just the process of taking certain moments in your life, maybe not the best moments in your life, and putting them into songs. Was that always your go-to outlet, or did it kind of evolve over the years?
Yeah, well, I started writing songs really as a way of, it was a form of self-therapy. I was kind of making sense of all of the things that had happened in my family life, as well as, when you're a teenager, you have all of these emotions flying around, and it's important to have a creative outlet. So the creative journey of making these songs was a really natural one. It was just like having, I don't know, it just came naturally from me, just like speaking. It was things that I felt, and I naturally managed to put them into these songs, and write them down. And it was kind of thoughtless. It just, I didn't have to put that much brain power into writing the lyrics, because I don't think that I maybe not I don't think they wrote themselves, but they kind of like they just flowed out of me naturally. And I think with a lot of my songwriting, because it comes from personal experience, it does feel that way. Sometimes I sit down and try and write songs in different genres, and that takes a bit more brain power because it's out of my comfort zone. But with this EP especially, it was a very natural process. It was just kind of, I'd feel something, I'd sit down with a piano or a guitar, and kind of the lyrics would then come and the songs would flow out of me.
And as I said, that definitely comes through in the final product. How long have you been playing the guitar or piano?
My musical journey started when I was around 5 with the cello, because my grandma is a cello teacher.
Oh, wow.
So I think my older brother started playing the cello, and the competitive younger brother that I was, I wanted to play as well. So I'd, whenever he wasn't playing, I'd sit down and kind of try my best to make a sound come out of the instrument. And then when I moved to England, properly started having lessons with my grandma. And I went to school with a scholarship for the cello, but then I always had an interest in other instruments. And it wasn't really till I was 13 when I kind of fell out of love a little bit with, the academic side of music, and the sort of the classical music department at my school, and I had to keep my scholarship, that I scrambled a bit to figure out how I was going to do that. And then at the same time, I was listening to a lot of Ed Sheeran, Tom Odell, um, and I also really enjoyed writing poetry. So writing songs and kind of learning the piano seemed like the logical next step. So yeah, I began teaching myself the piano. There was always a piano in my house, because I think we have quite a musical family. With my grandma, my grandpa, they all live their lives surrounded by music. So yeah, I'd played the piano before. It's not like I suddenly sat down and decided to learn the piano and write songs. I could do block chords. But I started writing songs when I was around 13. Um, and then, yeah, at first I was writing about what I thought songs should be about, and the songs um, they were necessary, but they weren't great. And then as soon as I started really channeling my personal experience, and is when I think my songwriting kind of took off and jumped to another level. And some of those early songs from that jump in the EP, I mean, um, yeah, I wrote the songs on the EP when I was around between 15 and 17 years old. So. Um, and then with the piano, with the guitar, I didn't really start playing the guitar until I was 15 years old. And Childhood Photographs is actually the first song I ever wrote on the guitar. And there's a funny, well, not funny, there's a personal story behind that song, a reason why it's so close to me. Um, yeah, and that's because when I was 15, I moved in with my grandparents when I was finishing the last 2 years of school, and my granddad got me a guitar as a present. And despite never having played before, I kind of in a couple of days wrote childhood photographs just using two strings on the guitar. And yeah, it's one of my favorite songs still. And I think it's still very simple. You can hear the guitar part simple, but that's one of the things that makes it special, I think.
Absolutely. And speaking of childhood photographs, I watched the garden session for that song. And like playing it acoustically now, do you have any flashbacks to when you were first writing it? Do those memories creep into your performance at all? Or is it kind of like you're in the now, you're playing it with the emotions you have in this moment?
For sure, I think especially when I did that video, it was at a time when I was especially raw emotionally, partly because I'd gone back home and I recorded it in the garden, which is outside the bedroom where I wrote that song when I was 15 years old. Um, yeah, my room at my grandma's house was right at the back of the house in the garden, so I kind of always felt like I was living in the garden, which was nice. But one of the reasons I went back, sadly, was because my granddad passed away. So I went back to say goodbye and to then help my grandma organize stuff. And so I was kind of going through a lot of emotions at the time, and I called my mate up who has a camera, and we decided to just record it in the garden. A very simple video, and all the audio is recorded on my phone, so it's super. It's nothing like as far as videos go. It's nothing crazy. We just put a camera down and did it in one take. But I think that's the thing that makes it so special. It's real, and it's kind of yeah, it came naturally, just like the song.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. But what a powerful moment in that song
Mhm.
and that story around that garden session. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier that Tom Odell and Ed Sheeran were some of your inspirations early on, and they're both artists that I can definitely hear through your music. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering what other musical or just creative in general influences you've had.
Yeah, I used to listen to a lot of Coldplay growing up. So that's the my dad always used to put Coldplay on in the car, and especially Green Eyes. That's the song he used to sing to me when I was a kid. So yeah, I love Chris Martin's songwriting, and then I also listen to a lot of James Blake
Okay, yeah.
there, um, Ben Howard and Nick Mulvey. I think those are kind of some of my favorite artists.
Yeah. That's actually the perfect segue into this next part where I'm always curious what the artists I listen to. So I'm
Yeah.
just basically going to ask some different questions. First one is what is the last song you listened to? So starting off simple.
What's the last song I listened to? Let me check. Um, Last song I listened to is Flume by Bon Iver.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a
nice.
good song.
Absolutely, yeah. If you could take three albums with you to a deserted island, what would those three albums be?
Three albums. Oh, a difficult question. I would take Blonde by Frank Ocean because it's a great album. Um, God, I think I'd also take kind of one of the early Coldplay albums for that sort of nostalgia.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'd uh, I'd take a Beatles album, but one of the compilation albums that has all of their songs on it.
Okay. Nice. Next question. What is a controversial song pick that you have? So a song that you like, but others tend to dislike, or that you don't like, but others tend to like.
Mm,
Another tricky one.
that's a tricky one because I guess like I'm kind of like surrounded, but I think my music taste is very much influenced by the people I'm around. So I kind of like the same stuff as all my mates. So I'll have to have a think. I don't know. I think I something that I listen to a lot, which some of my mates don't, is I still listen to a lot of classical music, and um, not that that's controversial, but I do think that in many ways, like modern music can't quite replicate that sort of emotion that you can get from a full orchestra, uh, or some of these classical pieces. Um, so yeah, I'd say that. I think in particular, I've been listening to. I've got it here. I'm just looking at my Spotify because I'm awful at remembering these things. But the Chopin concerto in number one in E minor, um, and I kind of fell back in love with it when I went back to England for the reasons I mentioned. I mean, my granddad, um, he was a piano tuner, and he'd often just sit in his workshop listening to these amazing pieces of music. So I kind of, when planning his funeral with my grandma, we went on a journey of kind of discovering what his favorite pieces were, his favorite pianists, his favorite singers, um, and yeah, we stumbled back upon this piece, and yeah, I've been listening to it a lot ever since. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I have a soft spot for classical music for sure. There's something just so timeless and soothing about it that no
yeah,
matter what type of modern music I listen to, it just is never the same.
yeah, for sure, for sure. It kind of, you know, for me, listening to it, it kind of has an ability to pull on my heartstrings in a way that
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
that other music probably couldn't.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the instruments.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm always blown away that someone came up with it, like someone made or wrote all of it's because it's so intricate. There's so many parts. Um, yeah, it's like film scores as well are amazing. There's some good film scores out there.
Mhm.
Um, I have a friend who often listens to film scores, and I got in his car once, and he had like the Jurassic Park theme going, and it was the most dramatic car ride I've ever been on. But yeah,
Yeah, what a way to arrive in style, with Jurassic Park just blaring.
yeah, yeah. It's cool because I mean they tell stories without lyrics as well, which is kind of a um, an impressive feat.
Yeah. What is your favorite, or I guess I should say, in your opinion, the best song of all time? Another big, heavy one.
Best song of all time, I can't answer because I haven't listened to every song of all time. But my favorite song is um, "Famous Blue Raincoat" by Leonard Cohen. I think
Okay.
it's another song that kind of reminds me of my dad, because he he plays it a lot, and I used to not like it when I was a teenager, and I was like, oh, dad's music's rubbish and stuff like that. But then it grew on me, and it's an amazing song.
Absolutely, yeah. Leonard Cohen in general, just master of words.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. Awesome. That's all of the questions I had, but I wanted to give you a chance to plug your music, plug your social accounts, if you want to let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on you can find me everywhere as Moy Cohen Music on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, yeah, all sorts. And my debut EP Overgrown is out now on all streaming platforms. So yeah, go give it a listen and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much.